Right, so this is the first introductory game in this part 3 of this DVD. Aggressive systems that White can try against the Dutch. One of my favourite parts of the DVD because they're all fun, hacky lines which create a lot of chaos from early days. A lot of chaos, more fun, avoid some theory, think for yourself from early stage. So I'm going to weapon you up so you know what to do against these hacky ideas. Now the first game we're going to look at is a game between Ch47 playing White, so one of my all-time favourite players, versus a Swiss player, Canel, who's about 2400 strength. Now, how did this game develop? Well, it developed d4, f5, and now Ch47 played h3. A nice little aggressive move. So, as I mentioned in the introduction, the idea of this is to undermine black on the light squares. How did black fight against this? Well, he went knight to f6, which is a logical move because it seems to stop this idea of g4. Does it stop it? No, it doesn't stop it. White plays g4 anyway, going for the hack. So black decided to take this pawn on g4. White's recaptured back. Black was on greedy mode. He Pac-Maned the pawn on g4, munched it off the board, and now White continued in a standard fashion. White has a number of ideas here. When we come to the theory section, I'm going to recommend another idea here from White point's view. I'm going to recommend queen to d3, but you'll have to wait until the theory section until we come across that. Ch47 just played pawn to e4. Now, very sensible idea. This builds a broad pawn centre in the centre of the board and it attacks the knight on g4. White's compensation basically relies on these open h and g files and this big centre. So how did the game continue? Well, black now played d6, guarding the knight on g4. White developed a piece, bishop to g5. It's good to see Ch47 play like this. He's playing aggressive chess, and it's not your typical kind of Russian chess. He's playing very inventively. This really tries to stop black's e-pawn from moving, and it creates some problems. Black played g6. White continued pawn to f3, forcing the knight on g4 to make a decision. Knight to f6. White just continued knight to c3, so he doesn't mind being a pawn down. This is irrelevant. All he wants to do is castle quickly queenside, and he's always got this long-term pressure on the h-file. The computer probably doesn't like this position from White, but I quite like it. He's got a big centre, pressure, active play. Black now played c6. Queen to d2, continue with the plan. Bishop to e6. So black is trying to cover some light squares with his pieces. White now castled. What's his plan here? Well, White's plan is to continue attack on the h-file, and another plan is where can his knight on g1 move to? Well, the knight on g1 can try to come round to f4. That's a very strong plan via h3. Knight to h3 to f4. All you've got to think in these positions, how can I put more pressure on my opponent? Black played knight to d7, trying to finish his development. King to b1, a very safety first move. Don't know if he needs to play it, but why not? Bishop to g7, knight to h3. So now the move comes in. White's getting his whole army into the game. Knight to h5. Interesting stuff. Knight to f4. Black really wants to swap this knight off. So knight takes f4. Now the white queen comes into the game. Queen takes f4. How does the game continue? Queen to b6. Black wants to start a counter-attack against the king. Whose attack's going to be quickest? Well, the queen comes back to d2. Another safety first move, but it's making way for the f-pawn. Queen comes back to c7. So they're doing a bit of jostling here. A bit of pokery-dickery, should I say. The queen now comes back to e3. Knight comes to b6. Now white plays a move d5. A very interesting pawn sacrifice. The black king's stuck in the centre, so white tries to open up the position. So how does black continue here? Pawn to s7, a4. I like this move. This is aimed against black castling queenside. If black castles queenside now, white plays a5. So black now plays a6, trying to stop this white pawn coming away to a6. And now white played e5. So this is a pawn sacrifice that I was mentioning. And we're only going to look at a couple more moves, but I'm just giving you a general idea about some ways that you can play from white perspective here. This idea of h3 and g4 is really just trying to, for the sake of a pawn, try to get a big centre, open up some lines, get your opponent out the book, and just play a very creative chess. So after e5, bishop takes e5, white continued f4, bishop to g7, what has white achieved from this pawn sacrifice? He's opened up the e file. He's gained some tempo. Pawn takes c6. Pawn takes c6. Bishop to g2. Korchnoi doesn't care about pawns in this game. He's playing like Macau Tao. Knight to c8, trying to keep things solid. Knight to e4. Maybe coming to d6 or f6 with check. And now black played a bad move. He went king to f8. He should have really played rook to b8. With probably black could even be better there. But when you're playing creative chess like this, anything's possible. Because in this position, after bishop to h6, black's position quickly fell apart here. His king is going to be subjected to a very big attack here. So again, like I said, this just gives you a feeling for what white's trying to achieve from this kind of h3 and g4 kind of thing. Okay, we'll move on to the next introductory game next.